The world could hold its breath. Because if global powers take sides, the unthinkable would no longer be fantasy. If the United States and NATO were to declare full military support for Israel, and if Russia, China, North Korea, and Pakistan responded by backing Iran, the alliances would be drawn, and war would no longer be regional, it would be global. This is how World War III could begin. In the early days, the skies over the Middle East might ignite. Israeli warplanes could strike deep into Iranian territory, targeting missile silos, nuclear sites, and command bunkers. In retaliation, Tehran might unleash its full firepower. Ballistic missiles could rain down on Tel Aviv, Haifa, and Dimona. But this time, Iran wouldn't be alone. From the east, Pakistan might mobilize. Their nuclear arsenal, the fifth largest on Earth, would be put on high alert. To the north, Russian bombers could patrol the skies over Syria. Advanced missile systems might begin flowing into Iran and Hezbollah's hands. And in the Pacific, China's navy could shift, moving into the Arabian Sea. This would no longer be about Israel and Iran. It would become a battle for dominance, a fight for global power, a fight for survival. NATO could invoke Article 5. The United States might deploy carrier strike groups into the Mediterranean. French Rafales, British Typhoons, and American F-35s would swarm the skies. A no-fly zone might be declared over Syria and western Iran. Russian and Chinese forces could challenge it immediately. And then, the first spark. A U.S. destroyer could be sunk by a hypersonic missile launched from a Chinese submarine. Hours later, an Israeli F-15 might strike a Russian airbase in Syria. Dozens of Russian personnel could be killed, and Moscow could call it an act of war. Meanwhile, North Korea might see its opening. It could launch a wave of short-range missiles at South Korea, Guam, and Okinawa. Seoul might go dark. Japan would scramble its defenses. Taiwan could go into full military lockdown, and the Pacific would erupt. The global economy wouldn't survive the shock. Oil prices could surge past $300 a barrel. Markets would crash. Entire countries might fall into blackouts. Fuel, food, and medical supplies would run short. Military vehicles would replace delivery trucks. And in cities across every continent, panic could spark chaos. Then, the nightmare. Tactical nuclear weapons might be used. One detonated by Iran near the Negev desert. One launched by Israel into the outskirts of Qom. They may avoid civilian zones at first, but the threshold would be crossed. Suddenly, Pakistan and India could both go to nuclear alert. China might test a multi-warhead ICBM. Russia could begin loading nuclear warheads onto Arctic submarines. And US and UK nuclear submarines? They would vanish, silent beneath the oceans, waiting. This is how brinkmanship plays out. And once it begins, there may be no turning back. Refugee crises could explode. Millions might flee from Iran, Syria, Iraq, and Israel. Borders would collapse. Europe might buckle under the pressure. American bases would become isolated fortresses, under siege from the outside and chaos within. And all the while, a silent war would rage in cyberspace. Banks could be drained, satellites disabled, power grids fried, flights grounded, entire cities left in the dark. Then, the final fatal mistake. A Russian nuclear warhead could be launched by accident or miscommunication toward NATO airspace. It would be intercepted, but the response? Immediate. Within 1 hour, hundreds of warheads could launch, splitting in flight, targeting capitals, turning cities to ash, turning the skies to fire. This would not be a scenario. It would be the end. Because in a war like this, there are no victors, only extinction. This is the cost of pride, of miscalculation, of failure to de-escalate. What begins with Israel and Iran could end with the collapse of human civilization. So while leaders posture behind podiums and missiles wait in their silos, remember this: if the wrong decision is made, if the next trigger is pulled, this war won't stop at borders. It would burn through armies, through nations, through the earth itself, and there would be nothing left to rebuild.